play with the picks. Sorry, got a little carried away there. Yeah, so Salty Dog Blues. Now, so try to see if you can, as I play the banjo thing, see if you can try to count that 4 counts like I was doing on the guitar a minute ago. And you'll see that the banjo is not just on the counts. It's not. It's around them. And that's what I'm trying to talk about here. So the guitar would be dum, and the guitar would be dum, and the guitar and banjo. And all those things, all those little solo bits, little runs there, they're not going to sound the same if the banjo is not off by, like, I don't want to say half a step, but it's not always half a step. Half a step is kind of like the base of it. There's that syncopation, but it doesn't necessarily do that. Sometimes the banjo will come back and be on the guitar. Sometimes the guitarist can dance over onto the, so it's not like it's a rule, but it's a way that it's done, and it creates that the bluegrass style thing, and then the fiddle just kind of dances through that lyrically, and the bass player will usually keep the whole thing driving. Its bass is pretty much with the guitar, but not necessarily exactly that either. It depends on how good they are. The band is kind of a young, not so great bluegrass band. They're probably going to be pretty much together, but the banjo will probably manage to get the syncopation. But the whole thing is really the whole band. It's like a jazz band. Good bluegrass bands, they syncopate everything. They're all over the place. Dance with it. So just think about that at this point. At this point, we're going to try to get these basics, but you want to think about that because this vamping stuff, it's a lot like jazz as opposed to like country. You really kind of get into the life of the music. You don't have to worry about solos or all these sharp notes or all these things. You just get into it. Anyway, so that's the second lesson, basically. That progression, that Salty Dog Blues, and we'll do this again one time real quick. And once you got that down, then get into this pinching. Get bored, try a run. Doesn't matter if it's, I mean, you let your fingers slide down, you can do this about anything. It doesn't really matter. You know, you just let you get back into the chords before you get moving there. But it sounds like, it's really cool because it's a, you know, there's that whole train kind of rumbling, rolling along kind of thing that really is cool because the whole band is moving. The guy's singing, you know, and then there's a little pause for a minute and the band is going. And it's cool. Or maybe they're doing that, but maybe it's a little bit more of an emotional part of the song and instead they'll do. But its emphasis really works really well. So I work on this. That's it. That was terrible. Well, that's what I get for going wild here when I'm not prepared. I have to get myself psyched up to play those bluegrass things. Sometime I'll play some bluegrass stuff for you when I'm more practiced and play some of the songs because there's some really cool songs and there's some really cool frailing stuff too. And we're going to get on. The next lesson I want to do is frailing the banjo. With the same piece. Well, actually, what I'm going to do, I think, is two things. One, because of the fact that we just did work with that G-C-D combination, I want to work with that with frailing. Same combination instead of with the rolls, we'll work with the basic frailing. So you get that down with the two things. You won't have to think about what combination, same combination, and work on that. And then I think what I'd like to do, you to work a little bit with is I'll Fly Away with frailing too, because that's pretty easy to play and it's a really nice song. Once you can get it down pretty quickly, and it's something you can, when you pick up the banjo and you're warming up and you want to play something that's just nice, sounds nice, it's not hard, sounds like a nice roll. People are going to hear it. If people hear you practice, they're going to think, oh, he sounds pretty good. You know, so I think it's a good one to pick up. And Cripple Creek is good for that too, but we'll worry about Cripple Creek later. I know you have it on that. You already have it on that one tape that I made, Cripple Creek, but we can work with it some more. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. There's tons of great stuff. Soldier's Joy is the one I've been working on. I'd like to get us working on that in a little bit here, but that's branching out, beginning to branch out into other tunings, because Soldier's Joy is not in G tuning, it's a C tuning. And I use a C, well, actually it's called a double C, that C that I use. And it's a pretty simple open chord kind of tuning, but it's really nice. And it has certain qualities that other tunings don't have. But I use this high D, and I'll show you that at some point. I'm sure you've seen me playing that high D before. I played on that for years. Double C is kind of new. So anyway, we're going to work on those things some too, but that's later. That's a couple more lessons down the road. The third lesson is coming up, and that's going to be the nuts and bolts of frailing. And then you'll have the nuts and bolts of frailing. You'll have the nuts and bolts of picking. And remember, all the bluegrass solos are based on those nuts and bolts of picking. It's all there. The roll, you have a roll that's alternating, or you have a roll, it goes back and forth. In real life, and so to speak, in bluegrass pieces, it's rolling and back and forth. You have to be able to move it, change it. But you'll see that. You're talking about the individual notes eventually, and then you're just going for the notes. But you train your fingers in doing those rolls and patterns and so forth, and when you need those notes, you'll be able to do it because your fingers can do those patterns. So that's what it really is. It's not necessarily that you're just applying those patterns. It's different, but that's how you train your fingers. I've talked to Emma about the way they train violinists. They just repeat scales everywhere, and I do actually do that on the banjo. We'll get into that too. The scales are really nice because you get the scales down, and you can start doing this chromatic stuff. That's actually melodic. Chromatic is where it's every single note, and then melodic is sometimes one note, sometimes two notes, but melodic is like a regular scale. It's pretty cool, but the finger pattern picking is actually you see, I show you, if I show you this hand, you see that it's not that much different from. Matter of fact, it's not different at all. It's just that basic roll. It sounds really cool, but and then here, all you're doing is. But getting two coordinated is a little trickier, of course. But that's why getting the roll down to where it just kind of happens and your hand just does it. It's gonna make a lot of difference. Okay. End of lesson 2.